Welcome back to the channel, my YouTube family. Welcome back to Life Behind the Sticks. And in today's episode, we are going to take a deep dive into the next gen consoles and see from a gamer's perspective, is it worth upgrading? Hope you're going to enjoy it. Let's do it! For those of you who live in a far, far away land with wonderful castles, wizards, the rainbows, occasional unicorns, that mystical place, you know who you are. I'm sure you won't need this video because you've had a next generation console which is gold plated for a long time. For the rest of us mere mortals though, here down on the earth, I think we would be quicker finding a dodo bird than finding a next-gen console. So, today what we're going to do is we are going to go through and show you when you're ready in about a couple of years' time to buy one. We're going to show you what the next-gen consoles are all about. Because for some weird reason, some really strange reason, the gaming gods said, G4, you're one of the chosen ones. You shall have an Xbox Series X. Now, I can't confirm or deny that there may have been some alien abduction or strange phenomenon around that decision. Some exploration by aliens. I can't get into it. I have signed an NDA. However, I do have an Xbox Series X, so we are going to go through and watching. You can see the video right up there. Oh, it's up there. No, it's up there. It's up there. We are going to watch that video through, and then we're going to come back and give you some benchmarks for this video. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like or subscribe. Let's go back to the benchmarks and let's get going. So let's start with what the claims they make in the video were. So richer, more dynamic colours at faster speed. So we'll try and have a look at that today. Certainly look at load games quicker. Switch between multiple games with quick resume. Not something that I actually use a lot, but we will play around with that today. Supports up to 2120 FPS. DirectX ray tracing. We will have a look at that, and compatible with games over 4 generations. We'll have a little bit of a look at that. And what I will do, what I'm going to say to you is I'm not highly technical. I'm not a tech head as such. I have some technical knowledge. This is purely from a gamer's point of view. And I'm going to show you warts and all some of the things that I found that I really like about the system. I'm going to show you some of the things that I don't quite like or are a little bit annoying, and so you're going to get a gamer's perspective on this, as I keep saying. So these are the benchmarks we're going to look at. Let's get over there or over there and we'll get into it. So the first thing we're going to look at here is richer, more dynamic colors at faster speeds, the DirectX ray tracing, and then supports up to 120 frames per second. So this all kind of works in with each other. And so I thought I'd cover the 3-in-1. Just before we get into the footage that I've got for you, I want to say that I'm using an Elgato capture card, an Elgato HD60, capturing at 1080p 60 frames for all the footage that you're about to see. I used the same capture card, the same software, all the same settings as much as possible, capturing between the two systems. So it gives you a very good view of how this, what the differences look like. So Metro Exodus recently updated their game. If you bought it for free, you got a free upgrade to the next gen consoles, and you will see that there is a huge difference here in the way that it looks and the way that the game feels. So this is at the very start of the game. I went back and restarted games on 2 different accounts so that we could have a look. Now, the ray tracing element of this, ray tracing is all about realistic lighting. and making the environment look more realistic, and therefore, obviously, the immersive feel of a game is much different. So, initially, when I looked at this footage, I was looking at the Xbox One footage, but as you pan down into the ground, you really start to see how the Xbox Series X looks quite different now. I've tried to line this up as best I can. It might not be perfect, but it's pretty close. And we're going to drop down into the underground, and you'll see, especially when you hit the ladder here, the huge difference in how the ray tracing and dynamic colors and all the rest of it work to produce quite a beautiful looking game. Now, one thing that did kind of strike me when I was playing through this was the fact that a game like Metro Exodus is a very dark, atmospheric game, and as you can see by the footage here, you can see a heck of a lot more on the Series X than you can with Xbox One. So it might take a little bit away from the atmosphere of the game. But you can see the detail level is just astounding. I really love this. Now, there is no HDR switched on, but as I said in the stream the other day, I don't think I need HDR. I'm blown away with the graphics that this gives with HDR, with ray tracing and dynamic color range and a higher frame rate. 60 FPS here, and the game just looks sensational, as you can probably tell.
Are you awake?
It's just crisp and clearer, and it just plays so much nicer.
Are you trying?
The new consoles, of course, are going to give you a faster, more powerful gaming experience, and it's actually going to take your gaming immersion to a whole different level, and that's whether you're using ray tracing, HDR, 4K and 8K modes, and a much higher frame rate of up to 120 frames per second. All of these combined are going to give you an incredible gaming experience. However, there are a few caveats on this and a few things that you are going to have to check to achieve all of that, and that I'm about to explain that for you now, and I would say it falls into 3 different categories. So the first thing you're going to have to consider is what is the capability of the display that you are using, and that depends. I know a lot of you use your TVs to play your games on, or some of you, like me, have a dedicated monitor. Whatever it might be, whatever your display might be, you are going to have to do a little bit of due diligence and checking of specifications to see exactly what your display is capable of outputting. So, obviously, if you bought a TV or something in the last couple of years, there is a good chance that it will be capable of outputting 4K, but you're going to have to check whether that is possible. Your refresh rate is one of the most important things if you want to achieve somewhere in the region of 120 frames per second. If your refresh rate is at 60 hertz, then it will be capped at 60 frames per second. So check what your refresh rate is on your TV. Obviously, is there some kind of HDR or HD facility in your TV, or monitor, and some TVs it might be in there, but you might have to it might be switched off by default, so you might have to switch that on, etc. Along with that is the cable that is provided, at least with the Xbox Series X. I can't speak whether the PlayStation 5 actually also provides a HDMI 2.1 cable. I would suggest it probably does. And it is very important that you use that cable. So why is it important? HDMI 2.1 will support data transfer speeds of 48 gigs per second from your console to your display. It will allow you to get up to 4 and 8K resolutions and potentially 4K at 120 frames per second, which is just insane. So it's very important that you check whether you're using that cable. If you're using an HDMI 2.0, for instance, that's only going to give you speeds of 18 gigabytes per second. So there is a huge leap in technology from 2 to 2.1 in HDMI cables. If your system hasn't got that at the moment, make sure that you upgrade. If you need multiple cables like I do, that you upgrade everything in your system to make sure that data can be transferred at those rates. I will be doing a more in-depth look at this and explaining it in a little bit more detail in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. Of course, you've now checked all that. The other thing that may be a bottleneck is the HDMI port on the back of your display. Does that support these levels of data transfer into your display? Some of the TVs have a dedicated HDMI port on the back of them that support these higher transfer rates, and then the other HDMI ports are a different technology level. So you'll need to check all of that and make sure it's all going to work for you. And of course, the last thing, assuming that you have the right display, you have the right cables, all the data will transfer in to your display, then you may need to check whether the game or games that you're going to play will support higher frame rates, 4K, etc. Now, in the Xbox store, there is a very, very easy way of doing this. So if you get into the Xbox store, you go to games, choose a category, and once you've chosen a category, you just hit the X on the controller and it will bring up a little filter menu. Go to the capabilities, which is the first one to select, and it will give you a drop-down list, and you can filter by a whole lot of different things like 120 frames per second, ray tracing, etc. And that will tell you what games actually support all of this technology. And let me tell you, there isn't a lot of games out there at this point in time, but I'm sure that will change as the game developers produce newer games and get to grips with how all this works. So the next thing I want to have a look at is load times. Now, the Xbox Series X and I think the PS5 as well have moved their technology as far as storage, hard drive storage goes, to SSD technology from the old HD kind of mechanical type drive. So because they've done that, and given that they've got, in the Series X, you've got a 12 teraflop GPU, you also have an 8-core CPU. Given the fact of all those things combined, you would expect that load times should be significantly quicker. There are a few things that you need to watch out for because they've made that jump in technology, and we're going to go over to the Xbox now and I'll explain what that is, because it does catch you a little bit by surprise when you first come across it. So one of the things that I've done since kind of moving from 360 to Xbox One, obviously, as we're shifting up the kind of technology tree, the games that we're playing are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So one of the things that I did, I actually did it in 360 days, but more so in Xbox One days, is that I enlisted the help of an external HDD drive to store all my games on. And the price of those drives are pretty reasonable now. You can get 2 to 5 terabytes of space for a very, very affordable price. So generally I run all my games off a hard drive, an external hard drive. So we come to Xbox Series X, and I have all my games sitting on an external drive. Now, I'm going to filter all my games that are Xbox Series X or S games here. And what you're going to see is there's a little symbol in that left-hand bottom corner that indicates whether these games are compatible with the next-gen console for Xbox. So that's quite nice. And the thing about these newer games is they do rely on the SSD technology to run them. So you'll notice with the Borderlands game, for instance, it has 2 opposing arrows in the bottom right there. And what that is actually telling you is that to play that game, it's currently sitting on an external HDD drive, but to play that game, and you'll see there's a few more there, to play that game, you are going to have to transfer it to a drive that is SSD compatible, which in this case means that I have to transfer it from an external drive to an internal drive to be able to play that game. So this is also applicable on PS5 from what I've been told. Thank you, Slackery, for that. And yeah, it takes you a bit by surprise when you first come across this, because I've been so used to running my games in a certain way from an external drive. So that's not the end of it though, because if I scroll down my list a little bit, we're going to come to Halo Master Chief Collection and also Minecraft Dungeons. Now, you can see they are compatible with Series X and S. However, though there are no arrows and they're not sitting on the internal drive, they will actually run from an external HDD drive. So it's a bit confusing. You're going to have to just basically suck it and see. And some games, just the way that they've been upgraded by the game developers, will run on external old technology drives. A majority of the newer games though will not. And here's the thing. 1 terabyte doesn't go far. I think I've already kind of chewed up around 300 gig with 4 or 5 games on my internal hard drive. So Xbox Series X does give you in the back of the console a little slot for external memory card, or almost the old PlayStation memory cards, an external SSD which you can buy. But right now there are very few choices as far as those SSDs go. In fact, I think there's only one here in Australia right now, and the cost of them is very, very high, almost half the cost of the console. So just something for you to be aware of if you are going to buy a Xbox Series X. I'm not sure what the configuration is like on the PS5. I'm sure somebody will tell you, but I know talking to Slackery the other day that the exact same thing is happening on the PS5 as far as transferring games, or you need to have them on the internal drive to be able to play them. Okay, let's move on to the load times, and let's see what it means in real time as far as games are concerned. So one of the games that even with Xbox One I found had incredibly long boot times was The Division 2. So we're going to use The Division 2 as our test subject. And I'm going to do 2 boot tests. We're going to boot into the game to our character save, and then from the character save into the full game. And let's just see what kind of difference we're going to see between both consoles. So here's sequence number 1. I've tried to line these up as much as possible. Might be a slight variation, but not much. And this is the initial boot into the game. And you can see the Series X is behind at this point. However, yeah, they're a bit neck and neck. Still, Xbox One is still ahead. And then all of a sudden, Series X just flies away. So roughly those loads were around 20 seconds for Series X and 24 for Xbox One. So here's the second boot. And this is where it really does get interesting. The Series X just flies away with this. Now, I did check this a couple of times because I thought it might have been an internet server connection problem, but I got very similar results in the 3 or 4 times that I tried this on the Xbox One. And you can see with the Xbox Series X, it's about 28 seconds and we're into the game. Xbox One at this point is still going, and in fact, the Xbox One takes a total of 1 minute 54. So between the first boot was about 4 seconds difference, not much in it, but with the second boot, there's almost a minute and a half difference in boot times, which is quite incredible. And something that was very, very unexpected. I didn't expect there to be such a large difference in these two games. So we're not going to stop there. We're going to look at what's going to happen in game and see if it gives us any benefit here. So we are going to do a couple of tests based around the fast travel. So here's the Xbox One. We're going to go back and forward between these safe houses and just see if there is any benefit actually in game as we're playing as far as load times are concerned. So you can see Xbox One 1080p 60 frames per second, and that is around 26 seconds or so, 26 and 40. And now we are going to go back to the original save house and just see if it improves any. And here we go. So fast travel. I mean, these are important things. If you need to know as a gamer what it's actually going to give you benefits. And there we go. So about 1910-ish to travel back. So a little bit short coming back. Now let's try the Xbox Series X and see what the comparison is. So we're going to hit the booto. There we go. Travel to that safe house. And let's see what we get. And that's about the 15-second mark. So 15 to 16-second mark. So about 10 seconds quicker. And what about on the way back, please, sir? Here we go. And that's about 8 seconds. So that's, wow, that's quick. So as you can see, guys, absolutely the loading games is quicker. Everything in game is quicker. And yeah, it seems to be a big tick for the SSD technology as far as the Xbox Series X goes. So the next thing we're going to look at is switching between multiple games with quick resume. So we're going to head over to the Xbox home screen, and then we're going to try and see what this whole quick resume thing is all about. Let's do it. So here we are on my Xbox main screen, home screen, and how quick resume basically works, and certain games will work with this. They've got to be Xbox Series X or S compatible game. Not aware that the Xbox One games will work with this system. So it's very new to the Xbox Series X and the next gen consoles. And what it basically means is that you can switch between games and apps fairly quickly. So I've had a little bit of a play around with this, and I've got to say the experience I've had has been what I would term as mixed. So let's go through and explain how this works, and then I'll tell you my experience with it. So basically from the home screen, hit the Xbox button, and that is not easy to say, let me tell you. and you'll see here in the column there is a couple of games sitting there. So if you go to My Games and Apps, you will see there are 2 games sitting in Quick Resume, being Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Watch Dogs Legion. Now, I've heard varying reports about how many games can actually be in Quick Resume. From what I read on Xbox site, it is 3, but I've heard another commentator say it's 5. So I would say probably Xbox would know what they're talking about. So, okay, so they're in a Quick Resume state. We are going to click on Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and you'll see how quick this will resume. Now, when I click on it, look at that. That's instant. It's absolutely instant. We're going to then click on Watch Dogs Legions, and you'll see the symbol Quick Resume is up in that right-hand corner. And there we go, we're in the game, and then we'll switch back to Valhalla. And this is what you usually see, Quick Resume. And we should be in the game pretty quickly, which is a pretty neat kind of feature. And so, say you were on your Xbox and you're maybe watching YouTube like this. You've been playing games and you want to check something out on YouTube. You can launch the YouTube app. This is not in a Quick Resume state, I've got to tell you, but it will boot up pretty quickly. And don't make a liar out of me, Xbox. There we go, put it up pretty quickly. Maybe you want to check out David Does Tech Stuff about the Intel processors, or restoring a broken Tetris handheld game, or whatever it might be. Oh, I'm finished with that. I want to go back to the game. Let's start some Watch Dogs Legion, and there you can get pretty much back into your game just that quick. And you go, oh, maybe I'm not in the mood for that. I might go to Assassin's Creed Valhalla instead. I might just run around and get my Viking on. And you're not going to be disappointed, because pretty much it is going to be instant. There we go. Just like that. Now, if you want to take any of these games out of that state, Quick Resume state, you'll right-click using the 3 lines on your remote, and you can see it says Remove from Quick Resume. Boom. And what will happen now, if I launch Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you will see that Quick Resume word is gone, and it will have to do a full boot back into the game. One thing I wanted to show you, here we are in The Division now. I'm going to press the Xbox button, and I'm going to go to My Game and Apps, and clearly it is showing that there are 3 games in Quick Resume. So we are going to go and press Assassin's Creed Valhalla, flick over to there, wait for it to think for a second. Perfect, that works no problem. I'm going to use the same method again to get into Watch Dogs Legions. And bing bong bash, that should come up fairly quickly. There it is. Now, let's see what happens when we click into The Division. So you saw where we left you. It says Quick Resume up in the top right corner there. And then we see this screen. And it's like, I'm trying to connect to the server. This screen has skipped quite a few screens, though, I've got to say, but it's kind of semi-Quick Resume. Now, when I've tried to do this in the past, I have had an error message come up, so it'll be interesting to see if this actually boots straight back in, or whether we get that error message again. So, I mean, we're still looking at load times of, that didn't take that long, but it certainly is not at the speed of Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Watch Dogs Legion. So, even though some of these games say they're Quick Resume, there obviously is some issues that still need to be ironed out and sorted with Xbox. And so it is not perfect at this point. However, it is a nice little feature. Not sure that I'm going to use it, but yeah, I thought I'd show you it anyway. I think it's quite a nice thing to have at your disposal, and I know a lot of people probably flick back and forward between YouTube and that kind of stuff, so they might well use it. And finally, compatible with games from 4 generations. So guys, I appreciate that this is quite a long video, but I did want to put as much information in as possible. We're going to go and show you just how the older generation games look on this system, and then we will finish for the day, and hopefully we can wrap up and do some conclusions. So what do Series Xbox 360 games, the original Xbox games, Xbox One games look like on this system? So I've put a series of clips together from Borderlands, the original Borderlands game from 360. This is an Xbox 360 game, and you can make your own decisions what you feel about how these look. Obviously I've put both sets of clips, and we're going to show you some actual footage in a second once we get through all these clips so that you can make a judgment on it. But I think that claim about the deeper, richer kind of dynamic colours is highlighted in these kind of shots and this kind of footage. Borderlands, as you know, is one of my favourite game series of all time. Here we go. Here we are in the game footage now. And yeah, there is quite a distinct difference in. It seems with the Xbox Series X, it's just the darks, the mid-tones and the darks are much more pronounced. And yeah, there is quite a difference to be had, I think. And you can see on the left there just how much of a difference we are seeing. Now, as we move on to an Xbox original game, Conker Live and Reloaded. Luckily, it's on gold at the moment, free of charge. So, yeah, the original Xbox game actually played very well, very smoothly, no problems at all. As you can see, graphically, it looks pretty good. I have no idea what this game is about, to be honest, but I just wanted to capture footage. And I've got to say, my overall feelings on any of the last generation games is that it just feels like a much smoother gaming experience. Now that could be a lot to do with the refresh rates you're getting, the graphics, the bump in CPU power and GPU power, but everything just plays much smoother than it does on Xbox One, and it's not something that I picked up immediately, but having gone back to Xbox One and then come back to the Series X, it's very, very noticeable. And finally, a game that we've been playing on the channel, and if you haven't checked out Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, please do. This is an Xbox One game. It hasn't been upgraded in any way, and it just looks absolutely amazing on Xbox Series X. And so, you know, I think this game is from 2017, I think around there. And yeah, the graphics are just stunning, as you can see. So yay, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for supporting this video by watching it all the way to the end. So what did we learn today? Well, I think the information speaks for itself. You can clearly see the differences between an Xbox One and a Series X. And I'm sure if you're upgrading from PS4 to PS5, the